Hi everyone, I'm Katie, an infant toddler Montessori teacher and registered early childhood educator. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to start Montessori from infancy. Now the good news is that it's pretty simple and costs nothing. I'll start off this video with some info about infancy according to Dr. Montessori, and then I'll get into some ideas that you can use to implement Montessori in your home as early as today. Truthfully, I love talking to families about Montessori from birth because Montessori is so respectful of the child. Through Montessori, we learn to follow the child, we learn to observe them, and we really get to know who they are. Now, Dr. Montessori observed that children are born with an absorbent mind. What this means is that they are absorbing all of the sights, the smells, the interactions. They're literally absorbing everything that surrounds them in their environment. And there's a quality of this absorbent mind known as the horm. Now, what the horm is it is this unconscious willpower. It's this unconscious inner drive that is within each child that drives them to grow and to learn. Now, I found that when I learned about the horm, it really helped me to understand how to work with infants and toddlers, because I now understand that there's this unconscious inner drive inside of them that is driving them towards certain movements, towards certain toys. So it really helps to know that the horm is there so that we can follow the child's lead and really follow their interests, what's driving them inside, rather than imposing our own ideas on the child of what it is that they should be interested in or what stage of development they should be in. The horm really helps us to follow the child. Now, since today's video is about infancy, you might be wondering, how do you follow a child who isn't quite mobile or verbal, right? They're just little tiny babies who are maybe spending a lot of time sleeping and eating and all those types of things. So how you follow an infant is you prepare rich environments for them. You provide them with interesting things to look at and engage with, and then you step back and allow them to explore. We call it freedom to explore. Infants in Montessori communities spend a lot of time lying on comfortable mats. They're either lying on their backs or their stomachs. Maybe they're sitting up with a little bit of support by a caregiver. And the reason why they're spending so much time on these mats is so that they have the freedom to move. They have the freedom to stretch. They have the freedom to roll, to reach, to eventually move themselves towards an object of interest. They don't spend a lot of time confined to seats or swings or those types of things, because we really want to give them the freedom to move. Montessori environments are carefully prepared so that there are materials on the shelf that are going to meet the child's development, that are going to be of interest to them. And initially, the adult is bringing these objects to the child so that they can engage with them. They can hold them in their hand, look at them, those types of things. But the environment is prepared so that eventually, with this freedom to move, as the child becomes more mobile, they're going to be able to go to those shelves and retrieve the materials that they would like to work with that day. Something that's really interesting about Montessori, which I've seen firsthand in Montessori classrooms, is that when a child, even an infant, is engaged with something, if they're either looking at something or they're exploring something with their hands, they aren't interrupted. The adult is always close by. We're obviously always supervising. But when the child is engaged, when they're concentrating, we do our very best not to interrupt. It's difficult to do because they're so sweet and we want to celebrate their accomplishments and we want them to learn everything that they possibly can. But I encourage you every once in a while, when your child is engaged with something, to just try your best to not interfere with that. Try not to break their concentration. Concentration is a big part of developing independence, and Dr. Montessori talked a lot about the importance of concentration. So I encourage you to do that at home when you can. When an infant is given the freedom to concentrate, this is how they're going to learn. This is how they're going to learn about the world around them. And this is how we learn to follow their lead. We are there when they need us, but we are otherwise invisible. All right, now I'm going to talk about 4 different ways that you can bring Montessori into your home today. And the first one is observing. Now, we talked about the importance of the adult observing the child, but what you want to do is you want to make time for the child to also observe you, especially when you're doing those types of household tasks. We refer to them as practical life skills in Montessori classrooms. So we tend to occupy children when we are cooking and cleaning, right? Because it's just easier to do it ourselves. And this is true, but I encourage you every once in a while, whenever possible, to invite the child to observe you while you're doing those types of household chores or practical life skills. So for example, if your infant really enjoys being in the carrier, really likes baby wearing, once they're old enough and they can hold their heads up, you can make them front facing so that they're facing outwards. Wear them on your chest while you're preparing food or doing the dishes or those types of things so that they can really get a front row seat to those types of activities. If they're not a fan of the carrier, you could pull their high chair up to the counter so that they can watch you, or we've even had some families in our at-home program send us photos of their children sitting on the counter, and really it gives them a great view of these practical life skills that we as adults think that, they're household chores. We do them every day. We don't necessarily enjoy doing them all the time. But for infants and toddlers, these are really fascinating things that we do every day to maintain a household and to maintain ourselves. So once your infant is interested in holding objects, so this is likely after the newborn phase, maybe once they start sitting up a little bit, a really great thing to do is to prepare an exploration basket. So I have an example of one right here. I wouldn't put all of these objects in the basket at once. I would only suggest maybe putting in 1 or 2 things in infancy just so that the child can really explore them. But this exploration basket has real objects inside. So I'll show you what I've put together here. So I have this beautiful wooden child-sized hairbrush. So you can just imagine as an infant who's learning about the world for the first time, being given these objects to explore. They don't need to use them. This is not, we're not handing a hairbrush to the child for the first time when we're brushing their hair. We're giving them the chance to explore these objects before they start using them. So something like a hairbrush. I have this great metal spoon. This is great because the temperature is cold because it's made of metal. This plastic funnel is a really interesting shape. Has a lot of different parts to hold on to. A little measuring spoon. Small cloth, it's nice and soft. Make sure it's clean. These are great for when the child starts to teeth as well. You can wet it, make it cold. They can chew on it. I also have a sponge here. Again, really interesting. They're going to be able to squeeze it, but make sure that it's clean. And then a wooden spoon. You can put anything that you have lying around the house that is safe for an infant to explore in these types of baskets. And you just keep rotating the materials every few weeks or once the child has lost interest. And before you know it, your baby has been given a chance to explore all of these safe household items before it's time for them to start using them. They're also really great for enriching vocabulary. You can name them. It's a wooden spoon, and just, as I said, give them the freedom to explore, making sure that everything is safe to be explored with all of the senses, because an infant will certainly want to put it in their mouth. Another way to implement some Montessori ideas into your home today is to give your infant the chance to explore food and pantry items. Again, it's really important that the items that you give, the food that you give to your child is safe. So if they're not eating solids yet, you want to wait on this idea, and you just want to make sure, again, I can't reiterate this enough, that there are no choking hazards, those types of things, because a child, an infant especially, is what Dr. Montessori referred to as a sensorial explorer. So whatever they are given in their hands, they are going to want to explore with all of their senses. So we really want to set the child up so that they're able to do that in a safe way. It helps us to feel less nervous, and it helps them to be able to explore more freely. So once they're eating solids and you start to give them like purees and things, give them a chance to touch it, to really feel it. You'll see that children sometimes will want to put it all over their faces and all over their hands, and this is because this is how they learn. They want to learn as much about this new thing as they can, and they do that through sensorial exploration. So if you're nervous about choking and things like that, or if they're not quite eating solids, something else that you could do is you can put these items into containers that they can just look at visually and explore in that way. Or you could put it in a Ziploc bag that they can squeeze, again, closely supervised, because chances are that bag is going to go into their mouth. But you want to make sure it's safe, but there are definitely alternatives to introducing these things at a younger age as well. Just put it inside a child-safe container for them to explore. They can shake it and look at it and those types of things. Really, the easiest thing to do to implement Montessori into your home today was the first suggestion I made, which is observation. It's really important that you make time for your child to observe you and other family members participating in household tasks, because as they grow, they're going to want to participate in these tasks, and they're going to eventually need to, right? Eventually they're going to need to learn how to care for a home and care for themselves independently and all those things. So we can start that in infancy. We can really start that from birth. So I really hope that you found today's video helpful. If you're interested in learning more on how to bring Montessori into your home, check out our at-home program. The link will be in the description below. And I'll see you next time. Bye!